We are going to speak about querying and manipulating Drupal 8 via core REST and Waterwheel. And this is something more interesting maybe to anyone who is doing decoupling or JavaScript or an external application which will use Drupal application as a backend. So we'll see. But enough about me. Let's do the presentation. So what is REST? Web services allow external application to interact with our site, and REST is just one way to do it. It's one of the most popular ways to do it. There's also a SOAP or XML RPC, and we have a RESTful API, which is basically an application that we can do to communicate with our site. And most common usage for the application and REST is to do updates, create new content, delete, and stuff like that. So let's move on. We are doing this by sending HTTP methods. Here you have get, head, post, put, delete, trace, options, connect, patch, and get. And you also have something that we call safe and unsafe methods. So safe methods are the ones that are not manipulating any data. So if you are like updating something or inserting something, this is manipulating data, so we are considering them unsafe. And Drupal is also considering them unsafe, so it's requesting an additional token so that you can do that. With this token, you can tell Drupal that, okay, I can manipulate this kind of data, and he knows that you have those permissions, and you can get this token through this link. Basically, when you are doing get, you are not manipulating anything, and it's considered as safe. So in these sessions, we'll speak about get, post, patch, and delete. Okay. So for each request, we are also sending a format. So format can be like JSON API, JSON XML or something similar. And we are using this and not accept header, because accept header has some issues with browsers, and it was considered as it had issues, so you can check the link above for this. So when sending body, also specified content type request header. So for example, if you are sending a post or a patch for this request. Okay. So how is this implemented in Drupal 8? We have 4 modules. One module is called HAL, basic authentication, RESTful web services, and serialization. So HAL is actually depending on the serialization, and it's giving us 2 keywords, and that's embed, for embed resources, and links. So it serializes entities using hypertext application language, and basic authentication gives us like a basic authentication, but we can also use something else, like cookies, like OAuth authentication, stuff like that. And we have, of course, RESTful web services that exposes entities, and we have serialization that is providing serialization and deserialization of those resources. So, how do we configure them? So, we need to do a couple of steps to get those resources. So first step is exposing data. We need to expose data as REST resources so that we can do something with them. Another step is granting permission on those resources. Third step is customized format. So we need to say in which format do we get this data. And authentication. So this can be like cookie, OAuth, token bearer, basic, whatever. And then we'll do what we need to do inside the application. Okay, so Drupal 8 started with REST, but then they did something called API First initiative, and we are moving from something that was basically done in Drupal 8 to something more advanced. So then the configuration and stuff was simplified because they thought that it was too complicated. So for at the beginning, the REST settings was the central point of all REST. So you had like REST settings, and in Drupal 8 and 8.1, you had something where you configured which entities you want to get REST and which methods, what format, everything. Everything was in this file. And you can then import it into configuration and get those REST responses. Okay. But in Drupal 8.2, that changed because of the initiative. And it was planned for the Drupal 8.2 that Waterwheel module will get initial release. And for Drupal 8.3, that JSON API will get its release. And in 2.17, that GraphQL will be implemented completely and stuff like that. So, in Drupal 8.2, each REST resources has a config interface that corresponds with the resource plugin. And without config entity, the REST resource will not be available for use. You can also now configure the granularity based on method or resource. And you can also do like, forget about the accesses to each REST resource, because the accesses are now based on nodes access and stuff like that. So you can do that manually, like write your own config, or you can use the REST UI module, which I recommend because of the lesser hassle for changing the permissions. So in the 8.2, you can see the changes from the example from before and now. Now you have which language code, which plugin ID, granularity. Here you have the methods, the formats, authentication. Before you did all this in one file, and that's it. You can get this inside the REST module, copy it, import it, that's it. And then modify it accordingly, of course. Okay. So, this is how it looks when you get your REST resource inside the REST UI. And this is pretty basic. You can check which methods are available and add it to formats, authentication, supported, and that's it. So for this, so when you are planning for API, you need to do some sort of tests to see if it works, how it works. You need some sort of planning, what you need, what you don't need. And this is where Postman is good at. So I recommend this as a REST client because it has a testing API. You can share it among the team. You can create your own collections and say that each collection has this kind of tests, and for each test you can see if it passes with flying colors or not, and that's it. So there are many others, but I think this is most widely used not by Drupal but by PHP community. So this is, you can see the example here, but okay, it's a bit blurry. You also have a history of the calls you had. You can enter your keys. You can share this, create a collection out of your calls, do the history, and check if it's working properly, if you are getting the response you want and stuff. Okay. So you also have a great thing here. You have testing snippets that can help you. You can isolate your request to have its own testing ground. So you can put this inside the collection, and then you have all in one place to test your complete API. And you can send that to each developer and say, okay, this needs to do this, and just make it work. Okay. Since it has its own testing API, this can be decoupled from the one who will implement this. So this is a node runner, and this is how it looks like when you are making the test on the collection. So pretty much like any other testing tool. So that's why it's great. It can even generate code for you, which you can then use for request header. Okay, so let's do the get. So get for fetching data in Drupal. HTTP request looks like this. So we are requesting here node 1 in format JSON. It's returning back 200, and in curl you should get it like this, and you should get back a JSON response of this node, and then make it manipulate it show it on the page like you want. Okay. So for jQuery, you are getting it like this. So you are sending inside the header, this is a JSON response and format. This is a get parameter, and inside success, you would do something inside with the code. For Guzzle, it looks something like this. Okay, so maybe you don't want to have authentication on gets. You can maybe pass it anywhere, but this is your choice. So you're getting a JSON string back, and that's the most common usage for getting resource. For post, it's something else. So you're sending a post. For this is how request looks like. It's getting back to one created parameter that node is inserted inside. So you will pass the type, title, body, and it will pass in the database. And in curl, you can get something like this. So if you noticed in the one of the first slides, I've told you that the session token you can get on this link. That's on REST session. And I'll reference this link in each of the codes with the session token. So basically where you see here that it writes session token, this is where you need to insert the token because of the CSRF attacks. So this is how Drupal handles. Okay. So inside jQuery, you also need to pass this token parameter because you'll not be able to insert data without it. And in article, you need to pass the data that your entity will hold. Okay. For Guzzle, it looks something like this. So you create like a serialized entity where you pass in the parameters, pass in a token, pass your serialized entity, and session token at the bottom. Okay, let's move on to update data. So updating data is, we are doing it through patch request. And for patching request, we are sending the parameters that needs to be patched or updated. And we are getting 200 OK response. So in curl, this looks something like this. So notice that the HAL JSON, you need to pass the links parameter for each request because of the format. HAL and JSON have those two parameters that makes it different from plain JSON. So, okay. So for jQuery, see here the links and the session token. So basically, you are passing the parameter to the node/3 here. So this is an example. These are examples that are already in Drupal core. So these REST resources are there, but you need to enable them for them to work. They will not be enabled by default. So that's why the REST UI make it much easier for you to enable. Okay. And in Guzzle, you would pass the parameters something like this, and also with the session token there. For deletion, this is plain and simple. You would pass the request header delete and use the token to the response for node deletion. This is the ID of node, and that node will return response that there is no content, so it's deleted. In jQuery, it looks something like this. So note the REST resources URLs for it if you will use it, because they are different than the ones in 8.1 and 8 version. Those were like entity/node/something. And in Drupal 8.2, now it's node/ID. So just a note here. In Guzzle, it's pretty similar to the ones prior to this. And we are getting to custom resources. So for custom resources, you basically, if you will create your own resources, you'll have to create also REST resources for this. And of course, you can also do it all manually. But since we are using Drupal, we are using it because we don't want to do things that are already done. So here we have a Drupal console, which is generating the code for us. So why do it manually? So we can generate this code with Drupal generate plugin RestResource. It will generate all the code for you. And then you have it enabled in the REST UI. You can move it. And of course, it will generate the skeleton. So it will not generate the complete code and that you don't have to touch anything. But it will create a skeleton with get, patch, update, whatever you need. You have like a walkthrough. And then you'll modify these methods so that you are getting the response you want. So basically, when you do something like this, and you'll get a code. Oh, sorry. So that it's generating the class and methods. So for example, you'll get a get method with certain parameter, and it will return REST response for you. So you basically, what you need to return the REST response you want, or to delete, or to update, or to insert. Here you can see the get method that is generated by the Drupal console module. So you're checking the permissions here and returning the responses you want. Basically loading something and returning it. Okay, so since you saw all the whole bunch of examples here, how to load something, insert something, you see that there is a lot of code for something to insert or to update, or it's not really that clean for when you program. So and you can do it with all these technologies and with all the different frameworks for JavaScript, and each have their own way how to do it. And that's something that Drupal community has saw. And basically what the plan was to, let's say, standardize something that we all can use, and even someone who absolutely doesn't know anything about Drupal, and he wants to make some application that will communicate through the API and do something in Drupal. So I don't know, insert entities, update, delete, create some comments, anything. And for that to work, you need something that will be atop of this API. And that's how Waterwheel initiative started. So the plan was basically to have a module that will have this ability, but in the future, this module should be in the core. It's planned to be in the core, so you will not have to have a different module for this. But for now, this is in development stages, so you have different module, and you'll have this kind of abilities after you enable it and some other. Okay.
I have a question, by the way.
Yeah.
So the acquiring data from the node.
Yeah.
Will it work with the alias or just the node /ID?
No, this will work with node/ID. I mean this one, but you can make your own resource that will work.
But it will not work by default with the alias of node.
You mean with the URL alias?
Yes, the URL alias. If you call it on the URL alias /format JSON.
No.
No.
No. Okay. But you have something we'll get there, which is a parallel project with the Waterwheel. So we have a Waterwheel, and we have a couple of other modules that are doing a parallel process with. Okay. So that will extend those abilities. So at the first stages, the Waterwheel module has been incorporated with the entity API query. So after that, it moved from this to the JSON API because JSON API is more standardized and has much better formats, and it exists for some time now. And this is something that is accepted by the community. Okay, while we wait. So the Waterwheel module removes you from having to think about the session tokens, for example. So basically, when you are requesting something from the module API, it will fetch the token for you, pass it in a post or patch or something, and you'll have a one-liner basically for getting the code, for pushing the code to update data, insert or something. So, okay. Let me just. Okay. So in the Waterwheel module, you'll also have the ability to filter out the data through the JSON API module, and this is something that is currently lacking, but GraphQL will have similar ability when it's done. Currently, the JSON API is in alpha, but let's. Okay, so we got here. Okay. So with the Waterwheel module, you'll get 3 REST resources more available. With those resources, you'll have the ability to fetch the types of data, what fields does this entity have, what kind of informations are there, I mean the structure of the entity itself. So basically, first one is entity types. It provides info about available types there are, what methods are available, what bundles, and more info about where you can get even more info about this entity. So if you get this and pass the get parameter to the more info, you'll get the response which has even more information about this kind of entity. And when you create your own entity, you can also do something similar to provide this kind of access to JavaScript developers. And on entity type / entity type, you are getting the additional info that is doing the more detailed information about this kind of entity that you have created inside your Drupal application. And on bundle, you are getting even more detailed information about the bundle and its fields. We'll take a look at the response from each type here. So basically for entity types, you are getting the methods, label, type content, what bundles you have, and if that's not enough for you, then go here. And if you are going here, you are getting the even more info. You are getting the fields for that bundle and stuff like that. So Waterwheel resource response for the bundle has even more parameters with the settings for each field. So you are getting a JSON response for each field, and each of the field parameter you can get inside the settings. Okay, so how do you use Waterwheel at all inside the site? So to use it, don't use the clone. If you want to use it inside the Drupal, don't use the clone from Git because it will fetch you the data that is actually being used on Node.js server. But for within the Drupal site, you need to download the latest resource, which you can download from this link, and place it inside the libraries folder, and then you'll get it like Drupal root, libraries, Waterwheel, and Waterwheel.js. And if you want to attach it to a certain page, you can attach it like this, and then you'll be able to use it. So for the using outside, so for example, on a Node.js, then you first need to enable the course. So what's this? So a course is cross-origin resource sharing, and if you are requesting something from an outside domain, you'll get blocked. For example, for Ajax calls, because you'll get that the course is not set. And prior to this, what we did is we set the headers inside Apache or inside Node to make it work. But as of Drupal 8.2, this is in the core. So you have a settings file here that you can modify and enable it. So it's no longer, you don't have to set it on the server itself, but you can also set it inside the config file. And this is how you are getting started if you are not using it within the site. So you'll have to like install dependencies, and if you need the browser version, you can build it with npm build. And I'm noting that this is not needed if you are using it on Drupal site, but as an external application that is on a separate domain, let's say. Okay, first you are going to have to instantiate Waterwheel. So if you are using it outside, you have to require it. You cannot do it on a Drupal site because the require is Node.js callback. But if you are doing it externally, you would do it like this. And the next thing that Waterwheel has is like a resource discovery. So it knows which entities or which resources are available for you to use. So when you instantiate Waterwheel, it knows that you have these entities available and you can do this kind of methods on them. So how does this work? So let's see here. First, you need to populate the resources after instantiating. And you say here, okay, I want to do with comments, files, menu, node articles. Those are REST resources. And then you'll have those methods available to you. And after this, then you can get or insert or post data inside the Drupal. For Node.js server, you need to do something like this, to first connect and then populate resources. Okay. So let's say that you want to do you want to create some sort of resources that is not currently available here. You need to create like manually your resources. And what does this do is it gives you an ability to add your own resources that are available inside the Waterwheel API. So you'll create this kind of object and set the base, set credentials to use, set the methods, and you'll say, okay, so for get method, use this link. So for patch, use this. So for update, use this. And for information, use this. And then the Waterwheel will know how to handle with this kind of type of resource. Okay. So here we see all the parameters. So base is a base path for Drupal instance. So all requests will use this path for base. For credentials, this is like username, password, stuff. It depends on which credentials, which type of authentication you use. For methods, post, get, update, so, and the path, of course. And for entity, it's entity type you want to use, bundle, for bundle, of course, and options for extended path informations. And once this is done, you can use it like any resource that is currently in the core. Get available resource. This is something similar to Populate, but you are only fetching resources. Prior to getting resource, you need to populate them to be able to get them. If they are not populated, then you don't have an ability to fetch them. This is how get looks like in Waterwheel. So you would have the variable you instantiate in previous slide, and then you would do a Waterwheel API user get. And then it will automatically pull the token, request, and return you a response you want. And here you can do some code with that information. And there are two parameters. You can also pass what type of response I want. So for example, JSON, HAL JSON, or something else, XML, CSV, anything. And this is how a patch would look like. So note that the API, you can't like push this to node itself. So like patch it through the waterwheel.api.node, but you need to tell the bundle, which bundle you want to update and then send it. Well, there is a bug inside the module where you can send the type, for example, to node/page and send the post and do the type correct, and it will update it same as on the correct link above. So, but it's still a work in progress, but you can use it. It works. This is like a minor bug there. So you can see the complexity here and complexity in, let's say, doing your own JSON call, jQuery call, sorry, for the method, any method to use here. So this is much cleaner. You have all in a couple of lines, and it does the same thing. And this is a post in Waterwheel. So note the two different kind of syntaxes. Both will, you can use any of them. So you can, for example, specify the type, or you can specify the type target ID. It will work in any way. So this is shorter, and this is like a longer syntax, but it will work. And this is delete inside the Waterwheel. So it's pretty much one call, and call to the node you want to delete. Okay. So what else you can do here is you can get embed resources. There's a function there. So basically, when you are calling the resources you want, there's an embed parameter where you can fetch the embedded resources inside this resource that are connected. And here you can then do whatever you want with this. It accepts two parameters. This is JSON entity, which needs to be passed, so you need to get it first, like in which type you want, and then just pass this parameter inside the function, and then you'll get the embed resource you want. And included fields, so you can say, I don't know, I need a body, or I need this field, and this field. You can also get field metadata for your entity and bundle like this. So you don't have to pass any parameter there. It will get you the field metadata you want. We are getting now to the JSON API I spoke earlier. So what is exactly JSON API? JSON API is not just Drupal related. It's related to the specification for building APIs in JSON. So how it came to be is that pretty much all the teams have their way of doing APIs, and then it needed to be standardized so that everyone knows how things are proper, and that each developer knows how to do it, what to do it, and to ease development cycle and workflow. And what's also interesting about the JSON API is that it will always support previous versions. So it will not change that if you if you worked something according to the API and they added something in a different version, it will not be backward compatible. It will be. So they will only add new things. They will never lose support for the old ones. You can go to this link to check formats and the specification for the JSON API. So why are we talking about JSON API is because this will be a standard in the core and in the Waterwheel when it moves inside the core. So you'll be able to send requests in JSON API format and get responses in the same manner. So how does this work? We'll see in the, okay. Yep. Okay. So this is how example of the JSON API specification response looks like. It's not only handling responses, but also requests. So you have the links, which is on which link am I, what's the next link, for example, what's the last link, and you have data, relationships, and that's it. So you can take a look at the complete specification inside the link on the previous slide. So Waterwheel has integration with JSON API. JSON API is actually a different module, and it was moved into Waterwheel as it will be a standard. Currently, only GET requests are supported, but this will change, of course, because this will move inside the core. And this is something that will be interesting to any decoupling team, because they'll have the ability, for example, to filter data and to move to more advanced requests. So this is how it looks like to get the data inside the JSON API response. So you are setting now, when you enable the JSON API module, Waterwheel will not enable it for you, even if you request it as a dependency. You'll have to enable it yourselves. And then you'll have another REST resource, which is API. And on the API, you are requesting the actual resources. So your base URL /API /parameters. And this is where request goes after you place some code like this. So here we are getting entity /bundle, so node article and the UUID for that article, and it's fetching us the resources. This is how we can create to filter data. So for example, this below is the same one as above, but you are passing it as a filter. So inside the filter, you can do something like fetch all articles which have an ID smaller than something, for example. But we'll get there. Okay. So this is example I've spoken. So for example, this will give you smaller NID than 8, and you can do even more advanced. So this all this filtering and requests are according to the JSON API standard, so you can take a look there for the call you want and pass it in as a Drupal standard, and it will work. This, of course, Waterwheel is JS library, but it will not work. Everything will not work if you don't enable the module. So you'll have to, for everything to work, you'll have to enable the module, download the JS library, and enable the JSON API module for this. Then you'll have like a complete set of tools you want. And this is how it looks like when you're posting data. So basically, you're building the entity you want, and then just pass it in on the JSON API. And that's it. So sorry for technical problems, but